So we'll get started in whatever position you prefer. You could choose a seated or a reclined position, something that feels relaxing for you. Take a moment to decide what that position will be for you, and then allow yourself to start to settle into it, taking time to adjust in any way that you need to, using any kind of support that you'd like, feeling free to use cushions or blankets that you have handy. If you'd like, you can close your eyes or allow your gaze to soften, settling on something calming within the room. And we'll start to release the muscles of the face, relaxing the jaw, letting the tongue fall away from the roof of the mouth. Letting the shoulders soften down, drawing the shoulder blades together on the back. If you are laying down, pressing those shoulder blades into the mat. And we'll start to allow ourselves to get a little bit heavier, settling into the support beneath the body. Taking a moment to notice each and every place where the body touches down on the ground or on some kind of a support. And allowing yourself to anchor into those supports. Finding a sense of connection and a sense of grounding with the earth beneath you. And once you start to feel a bit more settled, we'll transfer awareness to our breathing. Taking a moment to notice how your breath feels in your body. Noticing perhaps what parts of the body move as you breathe in and out. Noticing if your breathing is deep or shallow, if it's slow or fast. If it's a bit shallow or quick, try slowing it down a little bit and imagine your next inhale going a little bit deeper into your body. As you inhale, allowing the air to travel down the back of the throat, filling up the lungs, the rib cage expands, maybe the belly rises. And then as we exhale, letting that go out in the reverse, belly softens, air travels back up and out, the ribs knit back together, body softens once again. With each inhale, creating a little bit more space in the body. And with each exhale, finding a sense of softness and heaviness. After a few of those slower, deeper breaths, take stock again and notice if you feel that it's a forceful breath. Let it soften a little bit. Take it a little less deep, a little bit less long. If you notice that you're comfortable where you are, take a moment to feel what that feels like. Again, noticing what parts of the body move as you breathe in and out. Noticing the path that the breath travels on. And noticing any sensation that comes with that inhale and exhale. Working to find that comfortable feeling so that you can revisit it as we move through the class and use it as a guideline. Some of the poses that we'll hold are a little bit uncomfortable for most people. A deeper stretch is sometimes uncomfortable, so we'll use our breath as a guide to know if that is just discomfort or if it's maybe a little bit too much. And we'll also use our breath to help ease our way into our poses rather than jumping into them. Taking a moment to notice what your comfortable rhythm and depth of breath is. And then we'll start to invite some small movement back into the body, maybe gently wiggling fingers and wiggling toes. If it's available in the position you've chosen, circling wrists and ankles. And perhaps turning your head from side to side, noticing all the while what these movements feel like for you. And notice if you've lost awareness of your breathing. Bring that awareness right back again. Let's bring it all the way back to stillness. If you are laying on your back, taking a moment to draw your knees into your chest and roll over onto whichever side of the body you prefer. And pause there for a moment. Allow yourself to adjust to the new shape, the new position. And then when you feel ready, we'll come all the way up to a seated position. And we'll start right off coming into a bound ankle. Today's focus will be mostly on hips and hamstrings. We'll start off with a fairly adjustable hip stretch, allowing the knees to fall open to the sides and bringing the bottoms of the feet together in front of the body. The reason why I say this is adjustable is there's lots of ways to move it around to make it more comfortable. To start off with, we'll take our hands back behind our body and lengthen the spine a little bit. We'll ground down through both sitting bones and lift up through the crown of the head. So the spine is one long line of energy. The crown of the head is facing straight up towards the ceiling, and both of the sitting bones are grounding down. So there's equal weight through both sides of the body. You can move your feet further away from your body or closer to your body to find a position that feels right for you. We'll start to draw our knees down towards the floor. So if this already feels intense for you, you have the option to lean back on your arms, coming out of an upright position. If you don't feel it yet and you wanted to move deeper, you could bring your hands over onto your feet or onto your ankles and then hinge forward at the hips. So you may have noticed if you're watching me, I had to shift forward a little bit to make that comfortable for my upper body. So you can adjust your legs depending on what shape you've chosen for your arms. And another final option is if you don't experience any low back pain or any hip discomfort in this position, you can start to round your spine if you'd like. If you're rounding your spine, your feet will be a little bit further away from your body, and you'll allow your nose to come down towards your feet. Spread your shoulder blades and allow the whole spine to round. The arms are a little bit awkward in this position, so I like to tuck mine underneath of my legs if I'm choosing that option. The elbows are bent to 90 degrees. Backs of the hands rest on the floor, palms face up. So maybe trying a few different choices and then settling on the one that feels best for you. What we like to find in each of these shapes is, as I mentioned, maybe a little bit of discomfort, but definitely no pain. and a manageable, comfortable stretch. So that means that you're able to breathe comfortably, slowly, and steadily. And you're able to focus on that area where you're feeling the sensation. And as you breathe in, you create a little bit more space in the body. As you breathe out, maybe you can find some softness. If you notice that as you're breathing out, you're feeling still just tension everywhere, you might want to take a more gentle variation. You can adjust again by walking your hands back behind you. You can move your legs either further or closer from your body. Once you found that sweet spot, that edge, we'll rest there for a few moments. We'll allow ourselves the time that it takes to stretch these bigger muscle groups and allow ourselves the time to breathe here, slowly and steadily inhaling and exhaling, creating some space with each breath in and some softness and some release with each breath out. Gradually working the knees down towards the floor, continuing to find that sense of grounding through both sitting bones. Maybe noticing the connection along the outer edges of the feet and the ankles with the ground. And perhaps for a moment, taking the attention away from the hips and the legs, scanning through the upper body, noticing how you're feeling there. Seeing if there's any tension or tightness around the shoulders, around the upper back, through the chest, through the belly, through the low back. As much as possible, we want to focus our attention and our stretch here on the lower part of the body. So if you are feeling any tightness or tension in the upper body, see what kind of adjustments you can make to allow yourself to release and be more comfortable. We'll take 5 more slow, steady breaths here. Allow yourself to move into your deepest variation, which might mean an actual different shape, or it might mean a deeper focus on the feelings that you have here. It might mean a deeper focus on the breath. And there's no rush, but whenever you finish your 5 breaths, we'll take our hands back behind us. And we'll bring the knees back up towards one another so the feet rest on the floor a little bit wider than hip distance apart. And we'll gently start to shift the knees from side to side. Back and forth, really, really slow so that you can notice the transfer of your weight through your hips as you shift from side to side. Notice the different parts of your feet making contact with the ground as you shift side to side. And notice any feeling, any sensation that comes up through the legs and through the hips as you move. From here, let's allow the knees to drop all the way over onto the right side. And we'll tuck the left foot back behind us. From here, we'll set up so that both knees are around a 90-degree angle. So like a square at both knees. Both ankles are flexed, so the toes are drawing back towards the shin bones. And then we'll line up the upper body so that we're facing towards the right leg. You can place your right hand down by your right knee and your left hand down by your right foot. And here we're going to look for a little bit of a stretch along the outer right hip. So if you're already feeling it where you are, you can stay there. You can also adjust to make it a little bit more gentle by walking your hands back towards your body in most cases. And you can make it a little bit more intense by walking your hands out away from your body. You can take your hands closer to your right knee or closer to your right foot. Again, for most people, closer to the knee is a more gentle stretch. Closer to the foot is more intense. But everyone's built a little bit differently. So really take some time to explore all of those different hand positions before you settle on one for yourself. One final option, if it's comfortable for you, is to take your elbows all the way down onto the floor. And for me, this actually just changes the way it feels. It doesn't really change the intensity. It changes where I feel the stretch. So it might be an option for you, even if you're feeling a little bit tight in this position. At this point, we're really going to focus on the right leg. So if your left leg is not comfortable where it is, you can always change the position. I find sometimes having that right angle on the left knee is a little bit intense for my left hip. So I can bring my left knee a little bit further forward, and that lessens that intensity. Another option, if you're into it, is to move back into pigeon. So straightening out the left leg behind you. Any of those options are fine. Again, as long as you find a place where you feel like you've met your edge, there's some intensity, but no pain. And there's maybe some tension, but no serious discomfort. Once you found that position that works for you, we'll settle in again. Allowing yourself to find a focus on your breath, first of all. Reconnecting with that rhythm of inhale and exhale. And then after a couple of breaths, take a moment to check in your shape again. Notice how you feel through both hips, how you feel through your upper body, and adjust if you need to. From there, we'll take our awareness to the upper body, relaxing the jaw, softening the eyelids, maybe even all the way closed, or maybe just partially closed. Release the shoulders down and back, and allow the arms to be in a relaxed position. So even if they are supporting you, try to bring a little bit of a bend to the elbows. If you spend a lot of time sitting or a lot of time walking, you might be a little bit tight through the hips. So this deer pose or the pigeon pose, if it is causing you discomfort in your outer right hip, I find that working with the breath to visualize opening the area is really helpful for me. As I inhale, imagine all of the fresh energy and oxygen that's coming in with the breath could travel right to that area of tightness. And then as I exhale, visualize a little bit of that tightness being with the breath. So we're creating some space with our inhale and some softness, some release with our exhale. Let's count 3 more slow, deep breaths on this side. Adjusting one final time if you need to, making your way into your final pose on this side. And then when you finished your 3 breaths, we'll start by drawing the left knee in. Take our hands back behind our body, and then we'll bring the knees back up to center, planting the feet on the floor. Move the feet around hip distance apart, knees bent. And we'll ground down through both sitting bones, finding a neutral position for the hips. We started off with some pretty serious external rotation. Now we've done some internal rotation. So we'll give the hips a break for a moment. You can rub your right hip if you want to. Rub your left hip if you want to too. Giving yourself a moment to adjust. And then we'll switch to the other side. We'll let the knees fall all the way over to the left. And then we'll tuck the right foot back behind us, bringing both knees to around a 90-degree angle. So a nice square on both knees. We'll flex at the ankle so the toes draw back towards the shin. And then we'll start lining up our hands, one on either side of the left leg so that we're squaring towards that left leg. From here, we can adjust the position of our hands to start off with. So if you're comfortable where you are, you can leave your hands just as they are. If it's a little bit too intense for you, you can walk your hands back towards your body. And if you don't feel that stretch along the outer left hip, you can walk your hands further out, leaning forward. As you walk your hands further out, being mindful that sometimes you might feel more comfortable with your hands closer to your knee, or you might feel more comfortable with your hands closer to your foot. Taking a moment to check in and see what each option feels like towards the middle, towards the knee, towards the foot. And then again, if you'd like to, you can come all the way down onto your elbows on this side as well. What we're looking for here is just a small stretch on the outer left hip. A comfortable amount of stretch. Maybe there's some tension there, but there's not any intensity. It's definitely manageable. You could pause here for a few minutes, no problem. And your breath remains slow and steady. If you need to adjust, feeling free to do so. Again, usually walking your hands closer back to your body makes the stretch less intense. Further away makes it more intense. Closer to your knees, typically less intense. Closer to your foot is typically more intense. And then we'll turn our attention to our back leg. If you're comfortable where you are, you can stay there. I usually find it's a little bit uncomfortable for my low back to have that knee at 90 degrees, so I will either slide my knee further forward or further back so it's kind of out of the way. You can either have the leg completely straight or not, if it is back behind you, coming into a variation of pigeon pose. And then we'll turn our attention to our upper body, allowing the gaze to soften, or maybe allowing the eyes to close all the way. Releasing the jaw, softening shoulders down. And we'll start to center on our breath once again, feeling the breath travel in through the nose or the mouth, all the way down the back of the throat, filling up the lungs, filling up the belly. And slowly exhaling, letting the belly soften, letting the lungs empty a little bit at a time as the air travels back up and out. Maybe choosing to make use of a visualization. Another spin that I put on that one that I mentioned earlier sometimes is to imagine the breath almost like a ball of light. As I inhale, I'm drawing white light into the body. It's fresh energy, oxygen. That white light travels right to the area where I'm feeling tension. So for me, it's kind of right where my femur meets my hip joint. And I imagine that white light sort of swirling around a little bit and taking some of that tension with it as it leaves the body. It's not quite as bright anymore. As I inhale, that white light travels down the length of my spine and into that hip area. And as I exhale, the less white light travels back up and out. We all know, of course, our breath can't actually travel to our hips. It's a visualization tool that helps the muscles relax. After you've done that a few times, or you've been in the pose for a little bit of time, you want to adjust in any way. If you're feeling it's more intense, you can come out of it slightly. If you're feeling you've lost that sense of stretch, you can move into it a little bit more deeply. Pause here for 3 more slow, steady breaths. And whenever you're ready, coming all the way back upright, we'll start by sliding that right knee in if you haven't already. Take the hands back behind the body, and then we'll take the feet flat on the floor out in front of us, knees bent, knees and feet about hip distance apart. We'll pause in that neutral shape. And if you wanted to rub your left hip or your right one, you can do that. Just taking a moment to allow a little bit of gentle pressure. Noticing that sensation, noticing what it feels like. And then we'll release from that. And take the right foot all the way out in front of the body. And we'll fold the left knee so that the sole of the left foot comes just inside of the right leg. Keep our hands back behind us. We'll bring them in a little bit closer so we can sit up more tall. We'll flex at the right ankle so the toes draw back towards the shin. We'll start by lengthening, lifting up here. Allow the left leg and left hip to relax as much as you can. And we'll focus mostly on the right leg here. And we're looking for, again, a little bit of a gentle stretch, either through the center of the calf muscles, so the back of the lower leg, or through the center of the hamstring, the back of the upper leg. If you're feeling it where you are, you can stay there. And if you're not feeling it yet, and you want to hinge forward at the hips, you can do that as well. You can choose to walk your hands out in front of the body if that's more comfortable for you. If you do have any low back pain, I would recommend keeping your spine long and tall, crown of the head lifting up, shoulders drawing down and back, and gazing straight towards your toes or even beyond, so that the neck is in line with the rest of the spine and the spine is one long line of energy straight up and down. If you don't have any low back pain and you'd like to try rounding through the spine, you can do that as well. I would recommend relaxing your ankle if you're going to round your spine. And slowly start to walk your hands forward, curling over that right leg, allowing the head to hang down heavy. So your gaze is shifted down towards your knee. The shoulder blades spread on the back, and the arms hang heavy at the sides. So either option is a good option, just depends on what feels better for you. Usually I really enjoy the rounded spine variation, but my neck's a little bit sore today, so I'm going to take the more upright version. Flexing at the ankle and lifting up nice and tall. I always find it's really interesting when you change the shape just a little bit, how the stretch can completely shift in the body. You can feel it in a different area entirely. Sometimes even just from shifting your gaze. And once you've found the shape that you want to rest in, take a moment to relax through the upper body, softening the gaze, or again, if you want to, you can close your eyes entirely. Releasing the jaw open slightly, letting the tongue relax, letting the jaw relax, letting the shoulders soften down. Allow the breath to flow smooth and steady. Feeling each inhale fill you up, and each exhale bring you some softness, some sense of grounding maybe. Noticing the connection between the sitting bones and the floor. Taking a moment to check in and notice how you're feeling right now. Do you need to adjust before we settle into our final few moments in the pose, either taking a little bit more gentle variation or allowing yourself to move deeper? And we'll take a final 5 breaths here. allowing them to fill you up, and then allowing them to bring you some softness, some release. And taking your time whenever you finish your 5 breaths, coming all the way back upright. We'll extend the left leg out beside the right. You can take your hands back behind you for support, and then we'll gently shift the feet from side to side. Noticing any differences you feel between right leg and left. Noticing the heel shifting on the ground, maybe the calves, backs of the thighs. And then we'll get ready for the other side. Bending the right knee, bringing the sole of the right foot just inside of that left leg. We'll flex at the left ankle. We'll bring the hands back behind us and tent them on the ground. So the fingers are pressing just the tips into the floor. Palms are lifted, allowing ourselves to bring some length into our spines. We'll relax the right knee down as much as we can. So a lot of times we have the tendency to hold through the right hip, keeping that right knee lifted. Let's soften it down. Really focus on the left leg here. Looking for some sensation through the belly of the muscle for the hamstring and the calf. So right in the middle of that muscle, in between the knee and the ankle, in between the knee and the hip. If you're already feeling it where you are and you want to stay there, you can. If you're not feeling any sensation yet and you want to hinge forward at the hips, you can do that as well. Leaning towards your left foot and maybe walking your hands out in front of your body. My recommendation is if you experience low back pain, you stay more upright, gazing towards your foot or past. Keep the head in line with the rest of the spine. Anchor down through the sitting bones, lengthen up through the crown of the head as you inhale. And then soften, exhale, hinge forward. Hinging at the hips means folding just from the waist, not through the back at all. If you don't have low back pain or neck discomfort, and you put it around your spine, take a moment to soften your ankle, release your foot, and then start to walk the hands out in front of you, allowing the back to round, bringing your nose down towards your knee, letting your head hang heavy, and spreading the shoulder blades. Notice how that changes the stretch along the back of your leg and through your back if you choose to do it, and decide whether it's the right choice for you. You can try out both and then decide. Once you've chosen the position you'd like to stay in, take a moment to again relax the gaze. Let the eyes soften. Let the jaw release. Allow the shoulders to get a bit heavier, arms to get a bit heavier. I just noticed again my right hip was engaging, so softening through the right hip and the right knee. That's happening for you as well. And allow yourself to gradually ease into it as you inhale, creating some space. As you exhale, softening, hinging forward. And we're about midway on this side, so take a moment to check in. Notice if you need to adjust at all. If you're feeling any kind of pain, if you're feeling that stretch closer to your hip joint or closer to your knee joint, you may need to shift your position a little bit. Find something that's less intense. And if you feel like you've lost that sensation and you want to fold a little bit deeper, you can do that as well. Being mindful and really checking in at each one of those areas to make sure that you're really feeling what's going on. You don't want to push past the edge. And once you've settled in again, we'll take 5 deep breaths, slow and steady. Gradually allowing yourself to ease into the position. Again, that might be physical movement into a deeper fold. It might be more of a connection with the ground beneath you, really noticing where your leg, where your hips are touching down. It might be a deeper focus on the breath. Whenever you finish your 5 breaths, walking your hands back up towards your body. You can take them back behind you if you want, lean back a little bit, and then extend the right leg out beside the left. We'll gently shift those feet side to side, taking a moment again to check in. Notice how you feel. Notice any differences from one side to the other, if there are any. And then we'll bring it back to stillness. From here, we're going to make our way into a low lunge. So we'll start by coming up into a tabletop, coming onto hands and knees. We'll bring the right hand just underneath of the face, and we'll step the right foot outside of that right hand. You can take a few steps up if you need to, hop that foot forward. And pointing towards the top right corner of the mat. From here, you can adjust if you need to, sliding that left leg further back or further forward. We're looking for a little bit of a stretch along the front of the left hip or through the right hamstrings. You can choose if you want to stay upright on your hands. If it's available to you and it's comfortable for you, you can start to open your right knee out to the side, coming onto the outer edge of the right foot. So I'm just going to try to face the camera so you can see what that looks like if you're not familiar. So the knee's going to open out to the side on about a 45-degree angle on the outer edge of my right foot. And my left leg is still extending back behind me. So that's an option only if it's comfortable for you. You definitely do not have to do that if it's not comfortable. And another option, if you'd prefer to come down onto your elbows, you can do that as well. So only if you can evenly weight between your two elbows. If you're really heavy on your left elbow and your right elbow's not quite touching down, I would recommend maybe getting a block or some books to place them under your elbows, or just opting to stay up on your hands. If the reason you are coming down to your elbows is because your wrists bother you, some good options would be to roll the front of your mat and then place just the bottom of the palm of your hand on that roll to lessen the angle on your wrist, or to make your hands into fists and rest on your knuckles instead of on the palms of your hands. So that's a lot less intense on the wrist as well, because the wrists are more straight instead of bent. This one we won't hold quite as long. So taking a moment to adjust, finding the position that works for you. We'll take our 5 slow, steady breaths. Relaxing the jaw, relaxing the shoulders. Whenever you finish your 5 breaths, if you've come down on your elbows, come back up again. If your right knee is open to the side, bring it back in nice and close. If you slid your left knee back, slide it forward. And then from here, we'll make our way back into tabletop. Bringing the knees in line with one another, hands in line with one another, and we'll shift our hips from side to side for a moment. Coming back to center, we'll get ready for the other side. Starting by bringing the left hand towards the center of the mat, and then stepping the left foot just outside of that left hand. And we'll have our toes pointing towards the top left corner of the mat, so they're opening out to the side slightly. And then you can adjust the distance between your left foot and your right knee, either bringing them closer together to make the stretch a little bit less intense, or sliding that right knee further back to find a little bit more intensity. We're looking for a little bit of a stretch along the front of the right hip and or a stretch along the back of the left hamstring. So you might feel it in one of those places, you might feel it in both. You want to stop when you find a place where there's a gentle stretch in one or both of those areas. Once you found that spot, there's an option to open your left knee out to the side, coming up onto the outer edge of the left foot. So that knee's opening around a 45-degree angle out to the left side. And then some options for the arms. Again, if your wrists are uncomfortable, you can come onto fists, or you can roll the front of your mat and rest the lower part of your palm on the edge of the mat, so your fingertips come down onto the floor. Instead of being a full 90-degree angle on the wrists, it's a little bit less, maybe like a 70. And if it's comfortable for you and the stretch on your hip feels nice, you can come all the way down onto your elbows if you can evenly rest your weight between them. I mentioned before on the other side that if you had a block or books or something, you could bring them under your elbows. If you have a firm cushion, you could use that as well. So you can bring it in front of you and rest your elbows down on that. So choosing whichever variation you prefer. Remembering that this pose could be as gentle as having your right knee all the way up under your right hip, having your left knee over your left ankle, and having your hands resting gently on the floor. So you never have to go as deep as the pose has available to it. We're actually not even in the deepest variation of this pose, which involves reaching back and holding onto the right foot and bringing the elbow down to the floor and coming into a bind. So any amount of the pose is still the pose. You want to find something that feels comfortable and sustainable for 5 breaths. And again, no rush, but whenever you finish your 5 breaths, if you are down on your elbows, come back up onto your hands. If your left knee is tipping open to the side, bring it back into the center. If you slid your right knee back, slide it forward. And then step the left knee back to meet the right. From here, we'll make our way into a child's pose, taking the knees wide apart, bringing the big toes together and sitting the hips back onto the heels. We'll walk our hands out in front of us, allowing the upper body to recline all the way down. If having your arms straight out in front of you is not comfortable, you could bend your elbows and stack your forearms so that the front of your head rests on the back of your arms. If you're feeling some intensity through your hips from all the hip stretches and you don't experience any low back pain, you could even bring your knees all the way together and then reach your fingertips back towards your feet, coming into more of a curling leaf shape, allowing your shoulder blades to separate. You can choose if you want to shift your hips side to side. Allow yourself to settle in a little bit at a time. Gradually letting the hips get heavier with each exhale. And feeling the back of the rib cage expanding as you inhale. If you are completely comfortable in your child's pose and you'd like to make that your final resting pose, you're welcome to stay there. From here, we'll take 5 more slow, steady breaths in the child's pose. And then if you're choosing not to stay in child's pose, slowly start to walk your hands back up towards your body. Draw the knees together and shift the hips off to one side, extending the feet out in front of us. And then a couple of great options for a final resting pose are either a seated meditation or Shavasana. In Shavasana, we'll take our heels down to the top corners of our mat. Let our toes rock open to the sides. Come all the way down onto the back on the mat. Draw the shoulders down the back, pressing them into the ground, and then extend the arms out alongside the body. Palms can face up or down, whatever feels more natural in your body. And tuck the chin down towards the heart, lengthening the back of the neck, and allow the eyes to softly close. In whichever position you've chosen, you can choose to close your eyes if you'd like. If you would prefer to leave them open for any reason, you can soften your gaze so your eyes are partially open, partially closed. Release the jaw. Allow your teeth to separate from one another. And allow the tongue to fall away from the roof of the mouth. Releasing any tightness from the jaw, from the neck, from the shoulders. And then continuing on down the length of the body, checking in at each and every muscle and joint. Noticing any areas where you might still be holding on. Not even necessarily an area of tension, just an area of muscular engagement. So somewhere that you're not completely released, relaxed. If you come across one of those areas that's feeling a little bit tight or it's a little bit engaged, you can take a moment to notice the support in the surrounding area and really sink into that support. So for example, if I felt some tightness in my hip, I would notice what parts of my body near my hip are pressing into the ground. Notice the support that the ground brings to your body. Let your hips and the surrounding area get even heavier on the ground. And imagine those muscles softening and releasing. Doing this at each and every area where you're holding on, where you're feeling tightness. Allowing yourself to accept the support from below. And giving yourself a few moments here to rest. Let go of that tension, let go of that tightness, let go of that engagement so that the body can truly rest and absorb the practice. And if you have been focusing on controlling your breath in any way, deepening it or lengthening it, you can let that go too. Allowing the breathing to return to whatever rhythm is natural and comfortable for you. If you notice that your awareness has drifted outside of your body, outside of the present moment, we'll guide it back. Bringing your attention to the here and now. And we'll start to invite some small movement back into the body. Gently wiggling fingers, wiggling toes. Maybe circling wrists and circling ankles. Excuse me. Turning the head from side to side. And we'll come all the way back to stillness. If you are in your child's pose or laying on your back, take a moment to roll over onto whichever side of the body, knees up in towards your chest. Maybe extending your lower arm so you can rest your head on your upper arm like a pillow. If you've been in a seated position and you want to adjust your seated position, you can do that as well. And when we're all ready, we'll meet back up in whatever seated position is preferable. So whatever feels most comfortable for you. And take a moment to ground through both sides of the body, lengthening up. Bring hands together in front of the heart. Sealing the outer edges of the palms and the tips of the fingers. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to practice with me. From my light to yours, namaste.